Good morning everyone and welcome again. My name is Carol Astbury and today I'd like to talk to you about marriage and relationship education. Have you ever wondered why so many marriages fail in our society these days? It's a terribly sad fact, but in fact approximately 48% of all marriages in these days tend to fail. Why is that, I wonder? It's certainly not something that you want to have happen to your marriage. After all, you've spent a great deal of time planning it. You want to make sure that everything is going to be perfectly in place before the day, so you're going to be spending heaps of time on all of the arrangements for the ceremony. But before you get too entrenched in all of those plans, perhaps it is worthwhile considering marriage and relationship education. Now we're talking here about education and not counselling. So education is different to counselling. Marriage counsellors or education counsellors tend to deal with people who have already experienced some kind of difficulty in their relationship. We're not talking about that. We're talking about preparing for the marriage by education, which will hopefully teach you strategies to cope with any situation that may come along which could cause problems for you. Now, there's all sorts of different education that you can find. If you, for instance, do a search on the internet and put in marriage and relationship education, you'll find that all kinds of opportunities will come up for you. Those opportunities vary. You can perhaps find that there will be educators who will form little groups with several couples coming together to discuss education for their marriage. They might, in some circumstances, have weekends where you can go away for a weekend with other couples and experience all kinds of different education processes. You might decide to have just a one-on-one so that you find an educator that you and your partner are happy with, and you can go along and have several meetings with that person on your own and just have this very special one-to-one relationship. You can also find lots of marriage education available online, and at Wedding Plans Guide we will be putting some of these opportunities online for our members. Some of the things that are contained in the education are often things like questionnaires, and there's one in particular which is often used in Australia and I'm sure overseas. It's called Prepare. Now, what Prepare does is it asks both parties, the bride and the bridegroom, a series of questions, and it asks them to go away and answer those questions on their own. When they've finished answering the questions, they deliver the answers back to the marriage educator, who then has them processed through a special analysis program. And then you're invited back to meet the educator to discuss the outcomes. So what kind of questions do you think would be involved? What kind of topics do marriage educators cover? They cover things like family of origin, for instance. This can have a great effect on people, how their own families and how they've developed within that family as a child growing up. Lots of these things can affect you as an adult. It's not to say any of these things would prevent you from being married, of course. It simply will give you an understanding of perhaps why particular behaviour occurs at times. Other things they might ask you are questions about the sorts of things you may have considered or not considered for the future, such as perhaps an older relative, parent for instance in particular, who might become frail in their older age and suddenly not able to look after themselves. What would you as a couple then be prepared to do for that elderly parent? Would you want to take them in, for instance. You see, one might want to take them in and the other partner might not. So all of these things have to be discussed. Children. Do you want children? Of course, you know, the dream of marriage often is, it seems a natural flow on that you will have children, but have you seriously discussed it? Other things like, if you do have children, who is going to be prepared to perhaps give up their job to look after the children? In these days, most couples tend to have two incomes if they need to, with the way the economies are going. But you need to discuss those kind of things in advance. Okay, well, that's pretty much what I was going to talk to you about. Now, the relationship and marriage education has two hopes for the future. It hopes to do this, to enhance and sustain your marriage. That's what marriage education is about. Enhancing your relationship, sustaining your marriage. So I do encourage you to take the opportunity when you find it to take on some marriage and relationship education prior to the day. You'll see lots of this coming up on Wedding Plans Guide, so I hope you'll become a member of that and have access then to the information that we put on the website for you. In the meantime, happy planning and enjoy your wedding planning and have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening.